In the quiet hours just before dawn on November 12, when most of the world was still asleep and the sky hung like a deep velvet curtain of silence, an amateur astronomer named Evan Carter carried his equipment into a clearing behind his home. He had done this hundreds of times before, lugging the tripod, balancing the mount, aligning the telescope with steady hands, but that morning felt different. Not because of anything he sensed, but because of what he would only understand much later, after everything changed. He was planning a long exposure session to track the faint and unpredictable movements of the interstellar visitor known worldwide as 3I Atlas. Ever since its discovery on July 1, the object had become the fascination of both professional astronomers and casual stargazers, igniting debates, theories, and even fear. Evan had followed every update, its strange pulses, its shifting brightness, its uncanny behavior that didn't resemble any comet he had photographed in his 23 years of skywatching. He set his gear, checked his star chart, adjusted the tracking motor, and began the first of many exposures, each one set between 15 and 20 seconds. He wanted to catch even the faintest trace of light that Atlas might leave behind as it crossed a region of the sky that, by all accounts, should have been empty. The night was crisp, cold, and unbelievably still. Perfect conditions. He didn't expect anything unusual, not even when he noticed that the telescope sensor picked up a slightly brighter patch than expected. He assumed it was noise, a passing speck of dust, or some fleeting artifact. It wasn't until he went home later that day, uploaded the files to his computer, and enlarged the frames that he froze. There, hovering in the darkness behind a field of distant stars, was something he had no memory of ever seeing, something so out of place, so precise, so structured that his breath caught in his chest. It was shaped like a diamond, not the fuzzy, irregular blot of debris that sometimes appears during long exposures, but a clean, luminous form with unmistakably sharp edges. 4 symmetrical points, a body glowing softly with a light that looked neither scattered nor accidental. He leaned closer to the screen, zoomed in again. It didn't change. It didn't break apart into pixels or smear into noise. It held its shape with an eerie clarity. A diamond suspended in space. He checked his equipment logs. He verified the frame number. He inspected the raw file. Nothing suggested a malfunction. Nothing suggested lens reflection or atmospheric interference. He had taken thousands of long exposures in his life and had seen his fair share of camera anomalies, but this wasn't one of them. This was something else entirely. The diamond's interior appeared subtly illuminated, as if light were being emitted from within rather than reflected from without. Along its perimeter were tiny luminous nodes, spaced with impossible precision, forming a pattern no random cosmic debris could replicate. There were no jagged shadows, no irregularities, no signs of breaking or erosion. The symmetry was flawless, almost surgical. A moment passed before Evan realized that his hands had started trembling. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe a satellite flare? But satellites streak across the frame. They don't freeze in place. Maybe a drone? But drones don't appear tens of thousands of miles away, aligned with a comet's trajectory. Maybe a classified aircraft? But no aircraft has geometric perfection like this, or glows with such quiet softness. He opened the next frame. It was gone. Only in that single exposure, captured at the exact moment the shutter opened for 20 seconds, did the diamond reveal itself. Like something flickering through a veil, like a brief tear in whatever was hiding it. An involuntary chill ran down his back. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he processed the rest of the images, enhancing contrast, mapping pixel data, checking star positions, verifying that the object's location aligned with the projected path of 3I Atlas. The more he compared, the more disturbing it became. The diamond wasn't just near the comet's trajectory. It was positioned precisely along the line of motion, as if pacing the interstellar visitor, mirroring its path through the solar system. That discovery sent a surge of adrenaline through him. If this object was accompanying Atlas, then what was its purpose? And more importantly, how long had it been there, unseen by anyone? By sunrise, Evan had posted the image anonymously on a Facebook group dedicated to deep sky anomalies. He expected a handful of comments, maybe a brief discussion. Instead, by midday, the post had exploded. Thousands of people shared it. Amateur astronomers across the globe downloaded the raw file, ran their own analyses, and reached the same conclusion he had dreaded. The object wasn't natural. The structure was too clean, too balanced, too deliberate. One comment read, "This isn't debris, this is engineered." Another wrote, "This looks like a craft, a big one." Dozens of sketches appeared. Comparisons to historical UFO sightings flooded in triangular craft seen over forests, diamond-shaped objects hovering over deserts, silent luminous vehicles glimpsed above oceans. People from different countries, different decades, described silhouettes that eerily matched the one Evan captured in the dark silence of that November morning. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of something larger than himself, something he wasn't sure he wanted to be part of. As more observers examined the image, a chilling realization surfaced. For a structure that cleared to appear in a photo aimed at deep space, it had to be massive. Not a few meters, not a few dozen meters. Something far larger, large enough to dwarf any human-built spacecraft, large enough that its presence near Atlas could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. And if it was engineered, then the inevitable question emerged. Engineered by whom? Evan kept staring at the image long after the online frenzy began. He replayed the moment he clicked the shutter, unaware that the night sky had peeled back for a fraction of a second to reveal something watching, something traveling, something possibly guiding the interstellar comet through its quiet passage toward the inner solar system. And he understood one thing with absolute certainty. That single photograph had changed everything. Within hours of Evan's photograph spreading across the online astronomy community, discussions erupted everywhere, from small private groups to major forums filled with researchers, engineers, and long-time sky watchers. What fascinated them wasn't just the shape of the object, but its impossible placement. To appear so sharply defined in a deep sky frame, the diamond had to be incredibly large and positioned at a distance where natural debris would be blurred or invisible. The implications were hard to deny. By evening, the image had been dissected by dozens of amateur data analysts. Pixel measurements were compared, parallax checks were conducted, background stars were matched precisely with star charts. The object wasn't noise or artifact. It existed at a scale and clarity that defied any conventional explanation. More unsettling was that every analysis pointed to the same conclusion. The diamond aligned almost perfectly with the projected course of 3I Atlas, as if the two were associated. People speculated that the object had been traveling with Atlas for some time, hidden behind layers of light distortion or cloaking that long exposure photography had momentarily pierced. Others suggested the exposure time had revealed a breakdown in its masking technology, allowing its form to flicker into visibility for a split second. No one could say for sure, but the theories multiplied. Evan watched the chaos unfold with a strange mix of excitement and dread. He had only wanted to document an interstellar comet. Instead, he was now at the center of a global mystery. Reporters sent him messages. Researchers asked for interviews. Institutions requested raw files. He ignored most of them. Deep down, he understood he had captured something the world wasn't meant to see. Meanwhile, as the debate over the image intensified, a recurring pattern began to surface. Observers noted that Atlas had exhibited peculiar behaviors long before the photograph. Unusual brightness cycles, abrupt dimming, and rhythmic pulses that no comet should display. Some had dismissed these anomalies as sensor glitches or temporary outgassing, but when coupled with the diamond-shaped companion, the explanation felt too thin. What if the pulses weren't natural at all? What if they were signals to or from something? Across several astronomy forums, experts attempted to cross-reference the timing of Atlas's light fluctuations with the moment the diamond appeared. At least 3 analysts independently observed that one of Atlas's recorded pulses on the same night seemed subtly stronger than usual, an irregularity previously overlooked. Though inconclusive, it added to growing speculation that the two objects were engaged in some form of interaction, either mechanical or technological. More unsettling theories began to rise. That the diamond wasn't merely traveling alongside Atlas, but perhaps controlling its course, guiding it, studying it, or operating as part of a larger system. Some compared it to deep space probes, except far more advanced, far more precise. Evan tried to distance himself from the speculation, but there was no escaping it. His inbox flooded. His phone vibrated non-stop. Even neighbors started asking if the photo was real. He couldn't deny it. The evidence was there, captured in the raw file he had reviewed hundreds of times. But nothing prepared him for what happened next. In the midst of the online frenzy, someone shared a decades-old report describing diamond-shaped UFOs seen hovering silently over remote regions. These sightings, scattered across continents and spanning decades, shared uncanny similarities with the shape captured in Evan's photo. Rigid geometry, focused central light, sharp angles glowing softly in darkness. The pattern sent chills through the community. What Evan captured wasn't entirely without precedent. It was the first time such an object had been photographed so clearly, but not the first time humanity had glimpsed its outline. Night after night, more astronomers pointed their telescopes toward the region where Atlas moved, hoping to replicate the moment. None had succeeded. The diamond did not reappear. Some believed it had shifted position. Others thought whatever cloaking technology it used had adapted, closing the window that had allowed Evan's camera to expose it. The absence only magnified the mystery. By the end of the week, the conversation took an unexpected turn when a retired intelligence analyst joined one of the discussions. He claimed the diamond resembled objects referred to internally as escorts. Unidentified craft often detected trailing experimental missiles or high-energy tests during the Cold War. He mentioned a long-buried incident during a high-altitude nuclear test in 1962, where an unknown object had reportedly entered the fireball of a nuclear detonation and survived. Many dismissed him as a conspiracy theorist trying to ride the wave of attention. But he returned with more details. Names, dates, locations, none of which were easily dismissed. He spoke of a man, Dr. Harold Malgren, an advisor to U.S. presidents, who had, near the end of his life, begun revealing previously classified events surrounding nuclear tests. Malgren had claimed that during one such test, a strange object followed the missile into the upper atmosphere, was engulfed by a nuclear explosion, and yet emerged intact. He described it as geometrically sharp, structured, and unlike any known aerospace technology on Earth. The community froze. The parallels were undeniable. A structured craft, resistant to extreme forces, equipped with unknown technology, appearing silently and vanishing just as quickly. Whether the retired analyst was telling the truth or exaggerating didn't matter. The seed had been planted. Evan couldn't escape his growing discomfort. The more he read, the more he began to question whether he had captured something deeply connected to decades of hidden history. If the diamond was real, and he knew it was, then the implications stretched far beyond astronomy. It touched politics, secrecy, power, and history. Then another revelation emerged. The location of the diamond in Evan's photo placed it close enough to Atlas that any interaction between them might be intentional. Analysts began calculating trajectories, estimating distances, and debating whether the object might be scanning the comet or escorting it. Some speculated it was observing the solar system alongside Atlas, collecting data. Others argued it might be manipulating the comet's path for reasons unknown. Amid the spiraling theories, one fact remained undeniable. The object's symmetry and clarity could not be natural. Whatever it was, it had been engineered, and whatever had engineered, it was capable of creating a structure that moves silently in deep space, maintained perfect geometry, and activated or deactivated visibility at will. Evan felt the weight of millions of eyes on him. What he thought was a simple night of astrophotography had become something monumental, something frightening. He tried to retreat from the discussions, but the more he withdrew, the more people wanted answers. Late one night, scrolling through messages, he came across one sentence that made his chest tighten. "You didn't just capture a photo, you exposed something." He shut his laptop slowly. For the first time, he wasn't sure he wanted to know what came next. As the days passed, Evan tried to return to his normal routine, but nothing felt normal anymore. Every time he lifted his camera or adjusted his telescope, he felt the quiet weight of that diamond-shaped figure pressing into the back of his mind. It was as if the moment he captured that single frame, some invisible boundary had been crossed, and the night sky was no longer the same familiar place he had spent years exploring. The global discussion refused to fade. Instead, it grew louder, more complicated, more entangled with stories that had been buried for decades. Researchers began revisiting old testimonies from Cold War scientists, pilots, and intelligence officers who had claimed to see unidentified objects accompanying nuclear tests or tracking weaponry. Malgren's name surfaced again and again. People dug up archived interviews where he hinted, cautiously but unmistakably, that humanity had already encountered technologies not of Earth, technologies capable of surviving radiation, extreme pressure, and temperatures that could melt steel like wax. The parallels to Evan's photograph were impossible to ignore. Several analysts overlaid illustrations from the 1,962 test on top of the diamond silhouette. The resemblance was haunting. The shape, the symmetry, the impossibly clean structure. It was as though the same type of craft had appeared 63 years apart, unchanged, unaged, indifferent to time. In private groups, some theorized that the object, alongside Atlas, could be part of the same category of craft advanced observers sent to watch high-energy events or significant astronomical phenomena. Others believed they operated independently, gliding through the solar system on missions humans could never hope to understand. But the most unsettling theory suggested that these craft had been here longer than anyone imagined. Watching, recording, waiting. One night, after hours of resisting the urge to revisit the image, Evan opened the file again. He stared at every pixel, mapping the contours as he had done countless times. The longer he studied it, the more he noticed subtleties he had missed before, tiny gradients of light inside the diamond that hinted at layers or internal chambers, and faint directional illumination that suggested a deliberate orientation during the exposure. It wasn't drifting randomly. It was positioned, aimed. He tried to shake off the thought, but it clung to him. What if the object had been observing him in the same moment he was observing the sky? He pushed the idea away, but it refused to disappear. Meanwhile, more astronomers attempted their own long exposures of Atlas's passing trajectory. Hundreds of captures were posted online, each one analyzed with feverish intensity. None showed the diamond. A few detected strange distortions, momentary warps of light, or subtle glimmers of symmetry that vanished when enhanced, but nothing matching the clarity or precision of Evans' frame. This only deepened the mystery. Some suggested the object's visibility had been triggered by the exact combination of exposure, length, angle, and environmental conditions. Others argued that the object had intentionally adjusted its masking after being revealed. A few dared to suggest the possibility that Evans' photograph had triggered something, a reaction, a shift in behavior, a recalibration of an unknown system. The theories grew more complex when a former defense contractor anonymously released a series of documents describing the behavior of unidentified craft during classified missile tests. The documents spoke of silent observers that seemed capable of monitoring flight paths, absorbing energy signatures, and repositioning themselves with movements that defied known propulsion systems. One line stood out: "These objects do not interfere, they accompany." The word echoed in Evans' mind. Accompany. Was the diamond accompanying Atlas, or was it accompanying something else entirely? It wasn't long before whispers emerged, linking Atlas itself to something unnatural. Some argued that the comet's strange light pulses were too regular, too precise. Others claimed the object's deceleration and acceleration patterns didn't match gravitational models. A handful of researchers speculated that Atlas might not be a comet at all, but a disguised structure. And if so, the diamond might not be a companion. It might be a controller or a scout. Evan tried to ignore these theories, but one evening as he scrolled through the comments, he saw a message from an astrophysicist he deeply respected. It was short, simple, and unsettling. "Your photo suggests interaction, not coincidence." He read it again. Interaction. That night, he climbed the hill behind his property and set up his telescope. The sky was clear, sharp, unnervingly calm. He aligned the mount, checked the coordinates, and pointed the lens toward the path Atlas had taken. The comet had long since passed that region, but Evan felt compelled to look anyway, hoping for a sign, any sign, that the diamond had returned. He stared into the eyepiece for hours, long after the cold numbed his fingers. But the sky remained empty. Only stars flickered softly, indifferent to the questions burning inside him. Just when he considered packing up, a soft vibration buzzed against his leg. A notification. He glanced down. A message from another astronomer, someone he had exchanged data with before. "Look at this." Attached was a photo. It wasn't a diamond. It wasn't clear. But it showed something faint, nearly invisible, a distortion almost like heat shimmer, but far above the atmosphere, a translucent shape with a geometry that defied randomness. Evan's pulse quickened. It meant the object was still there, or another like it. He responded immediately, asking for details, exposure, time, angle, equipment. But before he could finish typing, a second message appeared. Frame after this, 1-0. It vanished. Evan stared at the hilltop horizon as if expecting the object to materialize in front of him. It didn't. But he felt watched. The following days only intensified the global obsession. Researchers compared sighting patterns across continents. Journalists traced connections between Atlas's anomalies and historical UFO documents. Conspiracy theorists produced elaborate diagrams mapping decades of sightings onto Atlas's trajectory. Some argued that the diamond-shaped object wasn't just accompanying the interstellar visitor, it was escorting it. The word resurfaced again, escort. And then came the message that broke Evan's remaining sense of distance from the events unfolding around him. A private email, unsigned, containing only 3 words, "You were seen." He read it again and again. The meaning was unmistakable. Someone or something knew that Evan had captured the image. He shut his laptop, locked his door, and sat in the darkness, listening to the silence press against the windows. The night outside felt different, now alive, aware. The sky had always been a place of wonder for him, a place of comfort. But now, as he sat with the weight of that message in his hands, he realized something had irrevocably changed. He wasn't just an observer anymore. He was part of the story. And whatever was traveling with 3i, Atlas, whatever hidden technology or ancient watcher drifted through the solar system on silent wings had noticed him. And it was still out there, waiting, watching, moving just beyond the edge of human understanding.